As you get older, these magical feelings you had when you were a child grow fewer and further apart. My mind isn't blown quite as often anymore as it was with Majora's Mask back in the day. My heart doesn't jump with the same kind of joy as often anymore as it was when I first got my hands on Super Mario Bros. 3 on the NES. My enthusiasm and genuine curiosity isn't there quite as often as it used to be, like back when I played Dark Souls or Monster Hunter for the first time. When those moments do happen, I absolutely cherish them, and it tends to be because of some really well-realized idea that makes the experience entirely novel. The wall merge mechanic from Link Between Worlds is so well thought out that you start thinking about the game in a completely different light. Portal was hard to grasp at first, but it quickly became second nature once you started thinking with portals, as the game puts it. Ideas like that are so cool, and you sometimes end up feeling like it's so strange that nobody thought of it before. Ideas that grab me can also be much more down to earth than this. Put an actual storyline in a Pokemon game where characters change and grow over time, and you've got me hooked, especially when they tend to tug at your heartstrings. Heck, even games like Undertale serve to recontextualize the mindless killing you do in other games, and that idea in and of itself is something that can really grab me. Now, none of those games are perfect. In fact, you can even argue that some of them are mediocre or even bad, and that's fine. They're not for everyone. Pokemon Mystery Dungeon almost weaponized the Pokemon OCs you see on DeviantArt, and I don't need to open the can of worms that is the Undertale fanbase at the height of its popularity back in 2015. Even Dark Souls has been put through its paces with how games journalists used to refer back to them again and again and again. This game is like Dark Souls. Crash Bandicoot is the Dark Souls of platformers. Is Monster Hunter and Dark Souls similar? The point is that these types of games tend to be different. Not everyone likes them. Maybe the premise is too out there. Maybe it comes across as too saccharine or sappy, or hell, I've torn Mystery Dungeon a new one with like every single video I made on those games, but I still adore them. The thing is, these games all have flaws, and that's also the case for Subnautica, a game that has absolutely captivated me for a good while now. It doesn't do anything particularly special, at least not conceptually. Rather, it's the way it does things that has me reeling. It's a survival game, and already that will turn many people off. Usually that'd be me as well, but I heard that it was pretty atmospheric, so I decided to give it a go after a friend of mine gave it to me for my birthday. Thank you, John. So, let me set the stage for you. Your ship is going down while you're in orbit over an unknown planet. Everyone scrambles to get to their life pods as soon as possible, including you. As you are ejected, a panel comes loose and it just domes you. You're out for the count. Events transpire in the game as you're out, and when you come to and escape your life pod, you're all alone. How long were you out? Will someone come for you? Have they already tried? If they did try, why did they fail? So many questions, but only one thing is for sure. You are currently all alone on an alien planet, surrounded by nothing but water. What are you going to do? Already before you even touch the water, you see that there is somewhat of an interesting premise here. Your job is obviously to somehow get off this planet. What do? Do you look for survivors? Do you send a distress signal? How would you even do that? Well, it's time to get your feet wet. This is where Subnautica starts to show what kind of game it is. You have a health meter, a hunger meter, and a thirst meter. You even have an O2 meter, but you kind of ignore those meters for a while. The shallows your life pod landed in is beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. From its visually striking coral tubes to the colorful plant life. These shallows are teeming with life. All sorts of wonderful fish live here, and it's easy to feel like Jack Skellington as you just go, "What's this? What's this?" In your life pod, there's a thingy on the wall that helps you cook food, extract water from fish bladders, create the tools you need, etc. Something I really appreciate is that you don't get any message telling you to make these things. It's intuitive enough that you can think of that yourself. But even more so, it respects your intelligence enough to figure out that if you're the kind of person who needs the game to tell you that you're going to need food to survive or an oxygen tank when you're in a water planet, then you're probably not gonna survive here anyway. It allows the player to intuit their way through the game, and more importantly, it allows you to set your own goals, both in the short term and in the long term, without the game prompting you to do so. That means that the game is full of little decisions you can make here and there, and it's up to you to use your understanding of the world to make those decisions, even if that understanding is still somewhat limited. As I mentioned, all you know is that you somehow need to not be stranded on this alien planet anymore. And in that sense, everything you do will serve that goal one way or another. You want to make a flashlight? Why do you want to make that? Well, the answer is obvious. You need it to see better in dark places. This will aid in exploration, which then will aid in what materials you can get. You get one step closer to finding a way off this hunk of splishy rock. Heck, even something as simple as getting the Sea Glide should be enough to send your mind spiraling with possibility. It's a thing that makes you go faster in water. It sounds like something that will definitely come in handy, but also like it's something you could easily do without if you just had the patience, right? However, it's important to note that with the increased speeds, you're effectively increasing your oxygen tank too, or at least the explorable range and depth where your oxygen tank is the limiting factor. Maybe you can finally explore those scary underwater caves where you were afraid of running out of oxygen in before. Who knows what's down there? As you get down here, you might ponder if it's worth it after all. There are these super scary snakes that float around down here, and had this been any other game, you might have been tempted to kill them. Heck, you might already have been tempted to try to kill them to see what kind of stuff you get from them. Here's Subnautica's second stroke of genius. There are no outright weapons in the game. There's a knife that can be used to scare some things away, but it's not meant to be a weapon. It's more of a survival tool. There's also a rifle that can freeze the things you hit with it, but it doesn't do any damage. You can still end up killing these creatures if you really set your mind to it. I kind of had to because one got way too close to my life pod, but Subnautica will never give you any materials for doing so. This reinforces the idea that you're not supposed to fight. You're not expected to fight. You're supposed to avoid them. This also in turn reinforces the idea of being at least somewhat helpless. And this in turn can strengthen the feeling of pure terror that can come from playing this game. Yes, terror. It's scary. It's terrifying. It's terrific. When I started streaming this game, I was told that this game would inspire a sense of thalassophobia in me, or a fear of the deep. I don't think I've ever felt honestly and truly afraid of the deep before. Not really afraid of the depth, but what this game does so well is make you feel like you're truly out of place, that you're out of your element. You are the proverbial fish out of water in this sense, pardon the pun. There are things here in the water that you can't see before it might be too late, and those are just the things you already know about. Subnautica is almost better at making you afraid of what you can't see, rather than what you can see. I got two examples here. The snakes I mentioned earlier. Those you can see are spooky, sure, but once you learn that they can hide in these mushrooms, you start getting paranoid of the things you can see. Suddenly, this place became filled with potential snakes, potential danger. Continuing with the idea of being afraid because of past knowledge, while playing this game on hardcore mode, I remember getting to this area. Yeah, I've been in an area similar to this one before, and I'm pretty sure I saw a so-called Reaper Leviathan. What's a Reaper Leviathan, you ask? Well, why don't we ask my past self when I first met one? How am I gonna get into there? Okay. That's a nope. That's a nope. Yep, those things are scary. Downright terrifying. And I expected there to be one in this area that I now found myself in. Where in the world is it? I started pinging frantically to see if I could find it, but I never could. Each ping with nothing to see did not make me feel at ease. No. Rather, it heightened my tension to an unbearable amount. In other words, I got super scared of something that might not even have been there at all. Let's see what happens, shall we? It was just a bone shark. It wasn't even a leviathan at all. It was just a goddamn stupid bone shark. Those pose barely any danger, yet my expectations were so high and the scare itself so abrupt that in my panic, I actually jumped out of my sea moth. This would very likely have been a death sentence with a real Reaper Leviathan, but I did it anyway because I just panicked. So yeah, I might never really have been in any danger at all, but it sure felt like it. After that experience, I decided to leave the area because if a bone shark scared me that much, imagine what the actual Reaper would have done. This is Subnautica's absolute biggest strength in my book. And the reason it can be so good is exactly because I can have expectations like these. The world is actually not randomly generated, like so many other survival games are. Things are placed in their respective biomes, and progression then becomes much more streamlined. This means that while you yourself set the pace of how you explore the world, you're still always progressing at a somewhat steady pace. It makes the whole thing feel so much more focused, and it elevates Subnautica from something that would otherwise feel a little bit like busy work to something I cannot put down. It is an absolute joy to explore all these diverse biomes. Every upgrade gives you such a feeling of power. I remember getting my sea moth and feeling so invincible I could take on everything.
Detecting multiple Leviathan class life forms in the region. Are you certain whatever you're doing is worth it?
Nope. While we're on the subject of feeling invincible, I love how that feeling is immediately punctuated by the stark realization that you can now go deeper. Have to go deeper and subject yourself to untold dangers. You feel very powerful in those areas where you only have smaller predators. You can bully those around as much as you'd like, no problem. You're on top of the food chain there. But as soon as you see a drop, as soon as you have to go deeper, you freeze. At least I did. I don't know about you, but I come to a drop like this, and it takes a surprising amount of courage to start going down. Who knows what I'll find down there in the depths? And that goes back to what we've already talked about earlier. Subnautica is so good at making you afraid of what you don't know, but you're also usually rewarded for your courage and curiosity, be it with new materials further down in the depths, or with blueprints to new equipment. All of this is really helped by the fact that the map isn't randomly generated, as I mentioned earlier. But the map isn't exactly ginormous either. It doesn't need to be. The game thrives on exploration, but the limited scope of the map is exactly what makes it so good. It usually has to be wide but shallow, or narrow but deep. This is more on the deeper side, fittingly enough for a game about the depths, but it's also incredibly smart in how it limits the map. Welcome to the edge. At this point, anyone with a working amygdala should have at least a couple of red flags waving at them right now. This does not feel right. This cannot be right. If you, for some reason, did not turn away already, you could of course try to explore this vast emptiness. Maybe you can find some sort of safe zone. Maybe you try to pierce the veil of darkness, only to hear your PDA tell you this.
Warning, entering ecological dead zone. Adding report to databank.
If you're anything like me, this will give you severe pause. Maybe you'll back right up and stay at the edge as you read the report. Oh, the ecology of the trench surrounding the crater supports only two kinds of life, microscopic and Leviathan class. Exploration is ill-advised. I love this. I mean, I hate this, but I love this. In one fell swoop, it tells you that you are in the safe zone. The playable area is the safe zone. Beyond the edge, your type of life simply is not supported. No food, no drink, nothing. And while you can deal with the microscopic life forms on pure survival terms, those Leviathans sound a bit scarier, right? But what if your PDA is wrong? This game is all about exploration, so what if? This is exactly what I love so much about the way Subnautica limits you. This game is all about exploration, but it doesn't limit you with impassable tiles, invisible walls, or even serious winds. In fact, it doesn't limit you at all. It poses a huge danger and it offers nothing out there, but you can still go out there. you deciding to return to the playable area is exactly that, a decision, a choice. It's not a difficult choice, mind you, but it's still a choice, and I love that. I love that they managed to limit the play area without breaking your suspension of disbelief. That's not to say the game is realistic. Sure, there are many things about this game that are unrealistic, but with a little bit of suspension of disbelief, you can usually get through without worrying too much about it. Now, I won't say much more about the rest of the game. There are many mysteries out there, and there are so many cool tools and upgrades you'll get over the course of the game, and many of the areas will fill you with such a sense of wonder and mystery. What happened to your other crew members? What are these alien facilities? Why did you come here in the first place? What happened to the Degassis? What is further down into the depths? To put it this way, the Leviathans I've shown in this video so far, they sure aren't the largest ones. And while the story isn't necessarily groundbreaking, it is super interesting learning about the fates of the rest of the crew, other explorers, and the alien facilities around here. Often, hints to what happened will be delivered through radio. Various distress calls will clue you in to where you could go to investigate, should you choose to do so. And these are absolutely perfect for when you're unsure where to explore. It's a really clever way to nudge you in the right direction for when you've run out of things to explore directly. It gives you a clear goal, and it really helps with the sense of aimlessness other games in the genre provide. Exploring these areas will often give you blueprints for various upgrades and things you can build. Perhaps now you can build a base. Perhaps you can now get a larger O2 tank. These side objectives are also not always spelled out for you with a waypoint. Somehow, you may even have to pay more attention to the instructions themselves, like this one. I genuinely adore how this has been structured because it no longer becomes exploration just for exploration's sake, you know? Well, it sounds like this is a perfect game, doesn't it? Well, I started by saying that this game has some flaws like any other game, but this is where I highlight some actual pressing issues with the game. Issues that can hold back the experience a lot for those of you who are sensitive to this sort of thing. Least important, I suppose, some tools you get are only used a very few times. The tractor cannon, for instance, I can only remember once or twice when you need it, but you don't know that you won't need it anymore after that, so you bring it with you anyway. It ends up functioning a little like an HM from the earlier Pokemon games, where you always bring a trash Pokemon with you just because you don't want to miss any goodies. And look at how big this is. It takes up a huge part of your inventory. Now, maybe more pressing, the game runs like dog shit at times. It sometimes drops frames so bad, it feels like I'm watching a PowerPoint presentation, particularly when you breach the water or you're in some alien installations. The game is also filled to the brim with bugs. I had this issue where I was in a prawn suit in an alien installation, and half my body went through the floor. It made it look like I was just a little baby man running around. Couldn't even reach the storage unit of the prawn, so I had to position it near a table for me to jump on before I could finally reach it. Only, I couldn't walk with the prawn suit either for whatever reason, so I had to use a grapple hook to slowly inch my way into position, then jump out of the suit, get my baby self on the table, and then finally reach the storage unit to get the key I needed. And you know what? I kept playing despite these issues. When I beat the game, I jumped right back into another playthrough on hardcore just because I loved it so much. I won't say the performance issues won't matter to you, it's an obvious blemish on the game, but to me, it really did not matter. Those issues detracted absolutely nothing for me personally, because I was so mesmerized by the beauty of this game. I played it with the filmic filter on, which makes everything so much darker, but at the same time it makes everything that emits light so much more vibrant. Going out at night was both terrifying and so hauntingly beautiful. I cannot find the words to really describe it. I cannot say any more than this, but I think this might be one of my favorite games of all time for me. It does so much with its core concept. The sound design is so on point and so goddamn phenomenal that I can't sing its praises enough. Every ping, every haunted tune, every sound effect, and even every moment of silence are each deliberate and masterfully put together. There's a fair bit of controversy surrounding the sound designer though, so you might have to separate the art from the artist on this one. But the sound design is undeniably good. I hope there's a redemption arc coming up for the designer soon, because it'd be a shame to lose such a talent. Subnautica is one of those games that genuinely, really got to me. I even got so hooked, so mesmerized, that I ended up streaming the game for 13 hours one day. It's quite shocking how much of an experience this was for me, and as of such, I definitely say this is something you guys should at least try. It might surprise you. For now though, that's all I had to say. Thank you again to my patrons. You're very patient, and I appreciate that a lot. I actually restructured our whole Patreon to include things like Fox's sketches that she doesn't post anywhere else, and to include a preview of the video before it comes out, so you guys can suggest edits before the thing goes live on YouTube. In fact, this very video was actually improved thanks to feedback from you guys. I also only charge per video and let people know on Discord and Twitter when a new video is about to come out. I'm way too inconsistent to charge monthly. Not a lot of new artwork this time, so we're using some other pics I couldn't fit into the last episode on Sly, as well as the new ones that there are. Thank you to Tay for collecting these pictures. Thank you again for all your support. I think I might be getting a bit sick, which is why my voice is a bit deeper than before. But I digress. All that's left for me to say now is ha det bra. Big thank you to Red for the awesome intro tune.